So the last part of this video, I want to talk about how the war affected America, in America, on American soil. So let's do it. So let's not start. I don't want you to write any of this. I just kind of wanted to give you a brief overview of what was going on. So right after Pearl Harbor, 5 million men volunteer for military service. 10 million more are drafted to meet the needs of a two-front war. Again, we are in a situation similar to Germany in that we have a two-front war to fight. Again, we have a lot more. We're not necessarily more resources, but we are kind of a little bit more of an industrial power, and we've been used to having this power for a while. Germany was kind of stripped of a lot of it after World War I. So George Marshall is the Army Chief of Staff. He leads the Armed Forces mobilization effort. Again, that's not necessary for you to know. And then we also expanded the military. So we actually got a lot of women involved in the military for the first time ever. Not first time ever, but like they were in non-combat positions. But even then, that was still a really big step up for women. They were mostly nurses beforehand, but now we are really like engaging them in the effort. They could be now secretaries, again, still nurses and stuff like that. But there's going to be a lot more opportunities for them in the actual military. So again, that's a big opportunity. We're not worried about you writing that down. You guys won't be tested on that. I just thought it was good to know. All right, so we know that if we want to win this war, we need Americans for support. So they are going to start issuing propaganda. Again, the same thing they did with World War I. I love this propaganda poster. It's one of my favorites. It says, "When you ride alone, you ride with Hitler," and you got like a little ghost version of Hitler there. And that's exactly what people are saying. You're wasting fuel. When you're not joining a carpool, you can join a carpool service. There's a lot of people like doing that during the war to try to save on resources. Again, the Office of War Information is going to take care of that. The positive propaganda is going to be spread through posters and films. They're going to have a lot of, movies have exploded during this time. And they're going to have a lot of, during our previews that we know, they're going to talk a lot about the war. They're going to talk about why you should be supporting, and how you can support the war effort. Danger warnings are also issued. Again, we'll talk more about that when we get to the Japanese internment and stuff like that. But again, they're going to warn against the danger of speaking out about the war, speaking out about against the government, or supporting Germany, Japan, or Italy as well. All right, so economically, again, same thing happened with World War I. The Office of Price Administration is going to freeze prices. They're going to try to fight inflation. We're going to see a lot higher taxes, the purchasing of war bonds. We're really going to kind of lower the demand for scarce goods because again, it's all hands on deck here. Everybody's trying to do their part to support the war. The War Production Board, again, similar to World War I, is going to say which companies need to convert their production over to the military. It's going to allocate raw materials and organize collection of recyclable materials as well. The other thing that happens is that we're going to be conserving a lot of food. Again, like just as in World War I, right? These are essentially the exact same thing that happens. We need to meet the food needs of the military. We have to feed at least 15 million men. It's going to be a very difficult task. So Victory gardens are planted again. By 1943, 20 million gardens yield about 8 million tons of produce, not only to feed your family, but you can actually also sell that to the government to help them to feed the military. Also, people are going to start rationing, again, going for like meatless Mondays, breadless Wednesdays, things like that. And they're going to try, again, and that is to try to help the military to meet the needs help the military meet their food needs. Okay, again, don't write this one. I think the next two slides you don't need to write. I just wanted to kind of touch on this, the industry really like rising up. And this is what actually is going to get us out of the Great Depression. Remember that is what is still going on during this time. But now because of the industry, we're like the factories are converting from civilian to war production, and the government is just spending millions of dollars trying to paying these people to produce things for the military, and that is what's going to get people jobs. It's going to get people working again and buying things again, which is going to bring an end to the Great Depression. Again, shipyards, defense plants expand, new ones are built. They're going to produce ships and arms very rapidly. And it's amazing. Again, we're talking about using prefabricated parts for the first time. Again, interchangeable parts as well. And people are working at record speeds, at long hours, long into the night. And again, it's all for the cause. Again, don't write any of this. Just listen. The labor's contribution is going to be really important too, because this wave of patriotism is going to sweep the nation, and by 1944, nearly 18 million are working in war industries, and even though they're still so they're working long hours, the unions are pledging not to strike because it would slow production and it could potentially hurt America's position in the war. The workers, though, are going to grow frustrated with the long hours and low wages. So Roosevelt's going to step in, and he is going to establish the National War Labor Board in 1942, which is going to be a kind of a mediator. It's going to between labor and management. They're going to try to prevent protests by setting limits on wage increases, and also going to and they're also going to ban workers from quitting or changing unions while employed. So not great, to be honest with you. It doesn't really fix the problem for the workers, but again, a lot of people are going to see that as if you're going to stop working, that's going to be seen as un-American. If you're going to try to quit your job or try to go find a different job, that's going to be seen as unpatriotic. Also, we have a lot of new workers. So we have 6 million women working to support the country. 2 million minorities are hired. Faces very strong discrimination at first. Again, because this is new. It's very similar to the Great Migration, but again, we're going to see all kinds of like Mexican workers are going to come in. They're actually going to bring. There's called a Bracero program that's mentioned here. They hire Mexican workers to come into the country to actually farm the land in the Southwest that a lot of the men had left to go off to the war. So we needed workers. So we started the Bracero program to help that. That's going to lead to some rioting and people like that. Again, a lot more discrimination. Remember that is still there. It's still present, but we won't really deal with that until we get to the 50s and 60s. And so I think that really covers it. I just wanted to kind of let you know what was going on with workers and what's going on with minorities during this time as well. All right, so we're back to writing, and I wanted you to write this just because this is going to help us with not our next unit, but the unit after that is the civil rights movement, and I think that this is kind of really kick that off a little bit. So A. Philip Randolph, he's going to be the head of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. Not really important for you to know that. He is going to organize a march on Washington, D.C., and FDR is he's actually going to issue an executive order which forbids discrimination. So that's really good that we're kind of getting rid of discrimination in the workforce, and that will kind of be expanded once we get to the civil rights movement as well. Also, with the civil rights, we have different protests. Because we have a lot of minorities that were not really there before coming into these northern cities. There's going to be a lot of tensions in these overcrowded northern cities. James Farmer is an African American. He's going to found the Congress of Racial Equality. Again, we'll talk more about that during the civil rights movement. But that's going to work to really stop racial segregation in the North, because it did happen. It was not just in the South. Again, and by 1943, we're going to see a lot of racial violence sweep the nation. Detroit is actually the worst one. They have the worst riots in Detroit, and it's kind of goes to show you that we're trying to do almost too much at once. We're trying to win this war, and when that war happens, we're really forgetting about a lot of the discrimination, a lot of the tension at home, and so those problems kind of fester and they kind of get worse while the war is going on. Some social adjustments that needed to take place. The families need to adjust to fathers being in the military. Mothers are going to be basically raising their children alone. Families really have to get to know each other again after fathers return. A lot of fathers didn't return, and that's going to lead to a lot of issues. A lot of couples are going to rush to get married before the husband goes overseas, and they might even try to have a child real quick before they go overseas, because again they want to start the family. They want, they want to have that connection. But again, it's a really important thing. A lot of people were very scared. And so they would try to get married and have children if they could before they actually went overseas. All right, so we're going to talk a lot more about this in class, but I wanted you to know about the internment of Japanese Americans. This is probably the most important part about probably one of the two. The other thing is probably going to be about the atomic bomb, but this is probably the most important thing besides that that happened during the war for our purposes. So again, the internment is it's a different word for confinement. And after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, they were really worried about certain groups of Japanese citizens or non-citizens being spies or potentially engaging in sabotage for the Japanese. Now, we know now that not a lot of them engaged, not a lot, actually none. There was no evidence of any Japanese Americans engaging in sabotage, but there's really no way to know that. So in 1942, FDR is going to sign for the removal of Japanese Americans in 4 states, again, mostly along the western coast. And he's going to move them, relocate them, and intern them or confine them to these internment camps that are further inside America. And again, it's going to be mostly in the desert. Again, we talked about this in class, so I don't want to go too far in depth to it, but it is still really important. So the U.S. Army is actually going to put 110,000 Japanese American into prison camps. About 2/3 of those were citizens of America, and that is insane because their rights are being violated. And this was the first major. After slavery, this is the first major event of a group of people. And this is the first event actually of citizens being interned, and so this is a really big deal. 1944, there was a Supreme Court case called Korematsu versus the United States, and the court rules in favor of internment. Again, they're going to say that in times of national crisis, it is okay for the government to do that. Again, with respect to national security. Later, during the 90s, they are going to actually formally apologize to Korematsu and provide him with a Presidential Medal of Freedom because of they ruled that this was really unjustified. But again, the war is going to cause a lot of people's fears to kind of take over, and that's the main reason why these Japanese citizens and Japanese aliens were still interred. So after the war, the Japanese American Citizens League is going to push for compensation, and they get it finally about 44 years later. Congress is going to formally apologize, and they will grant $20,000 to everyone sent to those relocation camps. And I believe that's it. Okay, guys, it was a little bit longer than expected. I apologize. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one for the end of World War II. Take it easy.